Vegas. Now, very disappointing with the NRL coverage on Fox because it was all Elvis, and Rugby League pioneered things in the 80s by taking games to the Isle of Man with a Charity Shield. Phil doesn't know where this is going yet. He's trying to work it out.
Never got a mention, did it, that Isle of Man?
Because at the first Charity Shield, the pre-match entertainment, Abide With Me, sung by Tony Christie, of course, of the famous song Las Vegas, never used on the coverage. Disappointing. Bloody Australians, Valandi out and all that. 40,746 people, many of which came from here. Because they were all posting their pictures.
Apparently. 5,000
attributed
to the UK.
Yeah, so I saw a few people on my socials and timelines being there. I didn't realise they were going, and then.
So when people say we don't go to Wembley anymore because it's too expensive and blah blah blah, we'll go off to Vegas. I'm joking. So it all kicked off, and there was big build up all week. TalkSport had the commentary from Triple M, which I think is the first time they've ever done that. And there were 2 games of Rugby League. What did anything happen in those, or was it just
It was sensational from start to finish. And actually, if you've followed Rugby League for as long as I have, and you've seen...
It's a long time.
It's a long time. Seen so many false dawns and opportunities missed. When you watch something like this, it almost does bring a lump to the throat and a tear to the eye with what it could be. Clearly, I wanted to stay up all night because it's a moment of history, and it's all very well watching it on repeat or having your timeline when you wake up telling you what's happened. I think you need to try and be as much of a part of that as you can as it happens to make sense of it. So thank you to the huge vat of coffee.
I was going to say I admire your commitment to the cause because I've not seen any of it. So, it would be a quiet podcast if you relied on me to talk about Vegas, wouldn't it?
But it was astonishing because it could have fallen flat on its face, and yet, and I get that that Fox are the primary broadcasters. They've got that link into America anyway. They want it to be a success, so their coverage was very much. This is the greatest thing that's ever happened. So you've got people like Matthew Johns and Gordon Tallis.
Matthew, NRL is going to buy Super League and turn it into winter, so Tom Trebojevic can play for Hull KR and Salford. Yeah.
But at some point, the product has to live up to the hype. Now, we know, because we're watching it with Rugby League eyes, that it probably will. But you sort of start watching it and thinking, right, if I didn't know this sport, what's happening that would make me want to go, wow, that's amazing. So the physicality at the beginning of the first game took your breath away a little bit. And then there were some incidents within the 2 games where you think, that will go viral. People will see that and say, if that's coming back next year, I want to be there. So you had the Jason Saab interception for Manly, who had spoken in the week. He was one of the players that was put up to the American public about maybe wanted to try out in the NFL. He is 6'5" and apparently just over 10 seconds for the 100 metres. He's the quickest man in the NRL, and he broke away down the sideline, and you're already thinking the American crowd will love that because they don't really, they go mad for interceptions. And Lachlan Ilias comes across and taps his ankle and puts him into touch, and it's just a wow moment. Then in the Roosters game, you've got Joey Manu with a behind the back flick pass. And we're going, yeah, that's a bit of skill, that's really great, but we're a game that does that kind of thing. And you could almost audibly hear the gasp in the stadium of people going, how has he done that? You've got Reece Walsh, who was clearly the Patrick Mahomes. He's the pin-up boy, he's got the looks, but he's got the skills to back it up. He scores a try, and the picture as he's diving in for the try, he's got his tongue out. And again, it's like, that's what Americans love to see, that extrovert nature. And I spoke to a couple of people afterwards who'd been out there via social media, one of whom was American, and obviously it was their first time that they'd been. They'd followed the NRL, so they weren't going as a rookie, but they'd never seen it live. And they sat with a load of other Americans, and the one thing that came across that people could not understand wasn't the fact of the brutality without the pads, which they loved. It was the fact that all of the players could do all the things. They could not work out.
Yeah, they're not just
how
one unit. Yeah.
That guy who's just done that run has made that tackle, and that guy who has just scored that touchdown has just leapt high and he should be on the special teams, but like he's doing it. And I think that's what captivated. There were apparently 20,000 Americans there. Quite a lot of them were linked to the rugby league communities because there was the Nines there, and you would have got most naturally people who do know the sport that would have gone, as opposed to those that there clearly were some who were interviewed who just happened to live in Vegas and thought, oh, we'll go, it's the biggest event this weekend. But what they saw took their breath away. And that's the bit that I loved the most. It didn't matter who won or lost. It was the fact that everybody's talking about 5 years and what you can build on the back of what they did. Don't judge whether it made or lost money in U1. Don't judge the crowd that went.
We're not jumping on one thing and going, well, this is great and everything's going to happen. This is bad.
And there clearly were going to be things that worked better than other things. But the whole week apparently was ridiculous. They had a fan fest in the old part of Las Vegas. 5,000 people.
Yeah, I saw that on social media. It just looked insane. I've been there in that street. Yeah, it was mad.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
You've got NASCAR. I think drove all their cars down the strip in support of it. Now, all of that kind of stuff the fact that the USA played Canada in Amateur International in a high school, didn't matter that, it was in a high school, that it was part of this week. There was a Masters Festival. There was a combine where 2 women have already been offered the chance to play in the NRLW. All of that, when you add all that together, that is a massive foundation stone to build off. So yes, it was fantastic, and I loved it, even though Brisbane lost.
Our friend Nicholas, he renewed his vows in one of the
the
Elvis things.
He did.
Nicholas, I don't know.
It was his wife's idea apparently, and instead of a ring being passed, it was a ball.
Oh no, she was walked down the aisle by the
South Sydney
mascot, the bunny. Yeah. Insane.
That was a different wedding, but yes, that was all.
Oh, was it?
All part of it. Yeah.
Oh well.
All merges into one
Yeah,
after. My mate from Alabama, says Neil, described rugby league as the NFL played at the speed of basketball. That's a good one.
It'd be interesting to see how it grows.
Yeah.
Because this is year 1, isn't it? I mean, even daft things like the pitch being slid in and stuff. All the socials that was done on that. I mean. That was impressive, wasn't
it? A real pitch, a real grass pitch. It wasn't AstroTurf.
Yeah.
And they all talked about, it's smaller and the in-goals. It didn't matter.
The yellow, even down to the yellow
posts
to sort of match the the gridiron posts and stuff. Yeah, the details that they've put into that as an event, to stage it, I think are pretty impressive. So it'd be interesting to see how it grows.
And there's only one missing element. We need to be there. Super League needs.
Well, I thought you meant us. Yeah, we'll do.
We do. Yeah,
I'll get the passport sorted in a year if the NRL want us to do the podcast.
We'll do a live.
You don't have to stay up all night then, do you?
I would go. I'm not a huge fan of America for lots of reasons.
That's your band now.
One of which is they don't have a sense of humour, but don't understand irony. Really, do you mean that? No, I don't actually. It's never mind. But I would go to Vegas next year to watch that if we could find
someone to pay you to go out there.
No. If we could find a spot in the calendar where we weren't doing a million other things at the same time, I would go because I really felt like I'd missed something.
What do they add to it then? Or do you just go again? Because Kevin said there's room for 3 games. But
obviously the World Cup.
Have another 2 games next year.
Rodri Jones was out there, wasn't he? Representing Rugby League Commercial.
And Matt Dwyer of IMG.
Yeah, so there's obviously conversations going on there. I suspect the World Club Challenge will end out.
Which would have been fantastic. There's a timing issue with that because the Australian clubs want to play it before their season starts, and this was week 1 of the season.
Yeah.
But there's
a bye round in the competition.
You could imagine. Yeah, you just give that team the bye in week 1, don't you?
Yeah.
And until they get 18 teams when there won't be a bye. Yeah. But you could put the World Club Challenge and you could have that either on the Friday night or you could make it 3 games in that stadium. I think the other thing that struck me was that after the first game, very few people left because they're used to seeing a 3 or 4 hour game. So to get 2 games for that period,
it was like the games in Toronto when people used to rock up during the game because they're not used to sort of a game being relatively short and. You go to the baseball, it goes on all day, doesn't it?
So I think the World Club Challenge will be a great fit. But there is a thought that you could take a Super League game on the road. If you took Hull KR, if you took Wigan and Saints, if you took a game where you've got teams that are renowned for travelling.
A loop fixture.
It'd have to be somebody's home fixture. Well, we've got them anyway, haven't we?
That's what I mean. We've got loop fixtures.
We might as well
so it'd
give
be a
it
loop
meaning.
fixture.
It's been one of the
So
games
somebody
I
doesn't
put
lose a home game, do
But-
they? You know, it's
But
one of
you
the
look
loop
at the
fixtures.
teams where historically their fans have travelled. You know, Leeds took 1,500 people to Melbourne the other year. Saints took
Warrington are always usually travel well, don't they? You know, Kettle
you know,
Island.
Wigan and Hull went and played an exhibition game in Australia. There were, I think, 5,000 fans from the two clubs. If we
With
knew
plenty of
in
notice.
advance
Yeah.
when it was and what we were playing for, it's got to be something meaningful that we're playing for, not an exhibition game. Then I think you've got another 25,000 seats to fill in that stadium. You'd immediately tick off another 5,000 with.
If the NFL can bring games over to Europe and they have a much shorter season than ours, for a team, a franchise to give up a home game, it's different for when the baseball comes because they have 182 games in a season or something ridiculous. No one's going to miss one. But if they can do it over here and in Germany and in Mexico, then I'm sure we could take the pain of losing a home game.
There is no pain of losing if you get financial recompense, and
and
what
sell
we're
another
looking
kit.
at is a commercial reason for doing it, and it's out there. I mean, the next thing that will be interesting to see is what Las Vegas says about the event. You know, how much money was generated, you know, what was spent in the casinos, and we like all these people. The other great thing is that the NFL season has just finished. So you've got like that 2 week gap that there's nothing filling it for American punters, and you're giving them something that's not dissimilar to what they're used to watching. You just think, I can see a lot more Americans buying into this.
So while I'm still not lukewarm but very cold on the idea of Super League Americas, I think that's a long way down the line if you're going to do something like that. And that's what they want to call it, Super League America, which is a strange thing, when everything else there is 3 initials and NRL and whatever. But if you can build gradually and don't do stupid things, then we might have. I'm not going to say we're going to crack America, but our version of rugby is more like their version of rugby than the other version of rugby. Just to confuse everything.
We've got a different model here, whereas in the past it's all been, there has to be a direct correlation to a domestic competition. If it gives impetus to a domestic competition, that's fine. But what we're doing is what the Americans love. We're giving them an event. We're taking the elite players to their back door and saying, and
ultimately to benefit the domestic sport back in its home
what
country.
the NRL want are a lot of Americans to buy subscriptions to their app to say, oh, I enjoyed watching that live. I now need to follow this Reece Walsh guy through his season. So I'll subscribe to either Fox Sports subscription channel or I'll buy the NRL app. Now, if they can get a minute percentage of American sports lovers to do that in their off-season because they've suddenly been exposed to it, that will more than pay for everything.
And I know it's an elephant in the room. There's a big Betfred thing there.
Or the bagpuss in the room.
And the big bagpuss in the room is, obviously this deal has been put together by the NRL very much with gambling in mind.
100%.
Anyone who looks at the NFL on a weekly basis will know that you're not just betting on the results, you're not just betting on the handicap, you're betting on how many yards players make, how many yards they throw, and etc., and whether a field goal goes over or not. So you would be looking at how many metres is Ash Hanley going to make this week. And
I think having seen it live, they will see all the elements that make up the game. But the important thing that came over was this is built around personalities. American sport isn't so much about the team. You might support a team, but what you really follow are the people that play the game. So we've all heard of Patrick Mahomes. If he walked in now, I probably wouldn't recognise him. But I know we managed to give them some personalities. If they want to go into the betting market, they can now say, hey, that little kid that ran around a lot, I want to bet on something that he did or might do next week. Or it was fantastic. And I'm an apologist for rugby league, you know that. But I was at 6:30 in the morning glad that I had stayed up all night to watch it because it was fantastic.
Kevin says the stadium playing music in every stoppage and play takes a bit of getting used to. I think it worked during the World Cup. Apart from that trumpet thing, which he didn't like. But I think it works during an event.
It
I know
was
it's
fine.
because we're not.
The
used
the
to
only
it,
thing that was
but-
slightly concerning was that after one of the tries they did play Sweet Caroline.
Well, at least it wasn't marching on together, because it's too catchy. It's too catchy. So Vegas gets the thumbs up, and if you want us to go over there, Peter Landys next year,
Well, clearly they must have paid a lot of media outlets to
Yeah.
be there. So
when Steve Mascord comes back, that might be his next book. Not the
well,
ones
I
right
haven't
now.
heard.
One
I haven't heard he's on his way back yet,
Oh,
which,
no.
which is a bit of a worry.
He might be stuck there. Oh dear.
I don't think he's posted anything for a day. I'm getting concerned.
Steve, get in touch.